Déjà vu is the sensation that you have already experienced a situation, even though you are encountering it for the first time. This effect is thought to occur when there is a brief overlap between the brain's memory and perception systems. Normally, the brain processes current events through short-term memory before storing them as long-term memories. In cases of déjà vu, it's believed the brain accidentally routes the present moment into long-term memory immediately, making it feel as though the event has already happened. This can be triggered by subtle similarities between your current environment and past experiences, such as a familiar arrangement of objects or similar lighting conditions. Neurological studies show that déjà vu is more common when the brain's temporal lobe is stimulated, and it is sometimes observed in people with temporal lobe epilepsy. Although it lasts only seconds, it can be disorienting because it creates a strong but false sense of familiarity. The Mandela Effect describes a phenomenon where large groups of people remember an event, fact, or detail differently from how it actually occurred. The term was coined after many individuals claim to recall Nelson Mandela dying in prison in the 1980s. Even though he was released in 1990 and died in 2013, this effect often involves pop culture references, brand logos, or historical details. Psychologists explain it as a form of false memory, where the brain reconstructs past experiences inaccurately, sometimes blending real events with imagination or external suggestions. Memory is not a perfect recording. It is more like a reconstruction each time it is recalled. When people share similar false memories, it can be reinforced through repeated discussion, making the incorrect version feel even more authentic. In some cases, people attribute the Mandela effect to parallel realities or alternate timelines, although there is no scientific evidence for this. Instead, cognitive science points to memory distortion, social reinforcement, and the brain's tendency to fill in missing information with familiar patterns. Time slips is the reported experience of suddenly finding oneself in a different time period, either in the past or the future, without any apparent transition. Witnesses often describe walking through a familiar location and noticing sudden changes in surroundings, clothing styles of people nearby, architecture, or even the quality of light. These changes usually vanish within minutes or hours, returning the witness to the present. Scientifically, there is no verified mechanism for time slips. Explanations often point to misperception, memory confusion, or altered states of consciousness caused by stress, fatigue, or environmental conditions. In some rare instances, time slips are linked to transient neurological events, such as disruptions in the brain's temporal lobe, which manages the perception of time. Folklore and paranormal literature frame time slips as accidental crossings into parallel dimensions or thin spots in reality where timelines intersect. Documented cases typically share two traits: highly specific period details in the vision and the sudden seamless shift back to normal surroundings. This seamlessness is one reason time slips feel unusually real to the person experiencing them. Missing time experiences refers to a gap in a person's memory where a measurable block of time, ranging from minutes to hours, cannot be accounted for. Individuals often realize this when checking the clock and finding that far more time has passed than they remember. This phenomenon is frequently reported in contexts like long drives, where a person reaches their destination with little to no memory of the trip, or during intense focus on a task. In psychology, this is explained as a form of dissociation, where attention is so narrowly concentrated that the brain fails to record passing events into memory. Another cause can be microsleeps, brief moments of unconsciousness that occur without realizing, often due to sleep deprivation. In some cases, people link missing time to traumatic events, where the brain intentionally blocks memories as a protective mechanism. In paranormal literature, missing time is sometimes connected to alien abduction narratives or supernatural encounters, but scientific consensus attributes it to lapses in attention, fatigue, or altered states that disrupt normal memory encoding. Glitches in the matrix stories are real-life events that seem to defy logic or the normal rules of cause and effect, giving the impression that reality has glitched like a malfunctioning computer program. Reports often include seeing duplicates of people or objects, events repeating exactly, or objects vanishing and reappearing in impossible ways. From a psychological standpoint, many of these incidents can be explained by inattentional blindness, where the brain overlooks details it doesn't expect, and memory reconstruction errors. Our brains are constantly filtering and piecing together sensory data, and small errors in that process can create experiences that feel unexplainable. For example, if you momentarily fail to notice someone leaving a room, your mind might interpret their sudden reappearance as instantaneous, even though they simply re-entered while your attention was elsewhere. In some cases, environmental factors like reflections, optical illusions, or sound echoes can contribute to the sensation of a glitch. While pop culture and conspiracy theories suggest these events hint at simulated reality, scientific explanations remain rooted in human perception limits, memory distortions, and sensory processing quirks. False awakenings occurs when a person dreams of waking up and starting their day, only to discover later, often abruptly, that they are still asleep. This can happen multiple times in succession, creating a loop where the dreamer repeatedly wakes up into another dream. False awakenings are linked to rapid eye movement, REM sleep, the stage where vivid dreaming occurs. During this stage, parts of the brain responsible for reasoning and self-awareness are less active, which makes it harder to recognize that the environment is dream-generated. These dreams are often highly realistic, replicating familiar surroundings with accurate details like furniture placement or ambient sounds, which can make them indistinguishable from real life until something illogical happens. Sleep researchers believe false awakenings may be caused by partial arousal from sleep, where the brain begins to emerge from REM but quickly slips back into it, creating a dream scenario about waking up. They are sometimes associated with lucid dreaming, sleep paralysis, and heightened stress or anxiety, which can disrupt normal sleep cycles and increase the likelihood of such realistic dream sequences. Repeated number patterns refer to the frequent and noticeable appearance of the same number sequences in daily life, such as 1111 on a clock, 333 on receipts, or 777 on license plates. In cognitive science, this is explained by a concept called selective attention. Once your brain assigns significance to a number, whether consciously or subconsciously, it becomes more likely to notice it in the environment. This is related to the Baader-Meinhof phenomenon, where increased awareness of something makes it appear more frequently, even though its actual occurrence rate hasn't changed. Human brains are wired to detect patterns, especially symmetrical or repeating ones, because they stand out visually and are easier to remember. Cultural and personal associations with certain numbers can amplify this effect, making them feel meaningful. In numerology and spiritual traditions, repeated numbers are sometimes interpreted as signs, messages, or indicators of alignment with a certain path. From a scientific perspective, these patterns are a product of normal perception and memory bias, rather than evidence of external influence or altered reality. Reality shifts are experiences where a person perceives that some aspect of the world has changed without explanation and often without others noticing. This might involve an object being in a different location, a detail of a familiar place appearing altered, or a known fact seeming different than remembered. These shifts can be subtle, such as a book cover color changing, or more dramatic, like a building appearing where there wasn't one before. In psychology, such events are often attributed to memory errors, inattentional blindness, or changes in environmental cues that the brain fills in based on expectation. The human brain stores memories in a flexible, reconstructive way, which means each recall slightly rewrites them. Over time, these updates can make past details feel certain even when they are incorrect. In stress, fatigue, or heightened emotional states, perception and recall can become even more prone to distortion. Alternative explanations in paranormal and speculative circles include parallel universe theory, quantum fluctuations, or simulation errors, though these lack scientific evidence. The key scientific understanding is that perception is not a direct recording of reality. It is an active process that can produce convincing but inaccurate experiences. Doppelganger encounters occurs when a person sees someone who looks exactly like themselves, often described as an identical copy in appearance, clothing, and sometimes even mannerisms. These encounters can be unsettling because the resemblance is so precise that it appears impossible to be coincidence. Folklore from various cultures treats doppelgangers as omens of bad luck, illness, or death, but modern interpretations focus on perception and cognitive errors. Scientifically, most cases can be explained by mistaken identity. Our brains use rapid pattern recognition to identify faces, and in certain lighting or environmental conditions, they can assign your own facial characteristics to another person who shares similar features. Another explanation is autoscopy, a rare neurological condition in which a person perceives a visual double of themselves, sometimes due to disruptions in the brain's temporal or parietal lobes. In crowded areas, clothing similarities and partial glimpses can create the illusion of an exact copy. While no scientific evidence supports supernatural explanations, the phenomenon remains powerful because it challenges the brain's sense of identity and recognition, making the experience deeply memorable and difficult to rationalize. Premonition dreams. Premonition dreams are vivid dream experiences that seem to predict future events with surprising accuracy. They are often more detailed, emotionally charged, and realistic than typical dreams, leaving a strong impression upon waking. People frequently report recalling specific locations, conversations, or sequences of events in these dreams, only to encounter them later in waking life. From a scientific perspective, the brain processes massive amounts of information each day, far more than we consciously notice. During sleep, this information is reorganized, and the subconscious can construct scenarios that align with likely real-world outcomes. When an actual event later mirrors the dream, it feels like foresight, but in most cases, it is coincidence amplified by selective memory. This means we tend to remember dreams that come true while forgetting the many that do not. Cultural and spiritual beliefs sometimes interpret premonition dreams as warnings or signs of heightened intuition, and anecdotal accounts often describe them preceding major life events. While there is no confirmed scientific mechanism for genuine predictive dreaming, these experiences are compelling because they blend emotional intensity with the powerful human tendency to search for meaning in patterns. Shadow people sightings involve perceiving dark, human-shaped figures, often featureless, that appear to move independently within one's environment. They are most commonly reported in peripheral vision and tend to vanish when looked at directly. These experiences often occur during periods of extreme fatigue, stress, or transitions between sleep and wakefulness, such as during sleep paralysis. Scientifically, they are frequently linked to hypnagogic or hypnopompic hallucinations, which are vivid sensory experiences occurring as the brain shifts in or out of REM sleep. In these states, the brain can misinterpret shadows, objects, or movement in low light as humanoid forms. Neurological conditions, migraines, certain medications, or heightened anxiety can also cause similar perceptions. The phenomenon can be intensified by the amygdala, the brain's fear center, which becomes hyperactive during stress, priming us to detect threats in ambiguous shapes or movements. Cultural interpretations vary widely. Some see shadow people as spirits, interdimensional beings, or omens. While there is no scientific evidence for paranormal causes, the consistent reports across cultures and history make shadow people one of the most enduring and unsettling examples of perceived glitches in reality. Spontaneous object movement refers to situations where an item is believed to have been placed in a specific location, only to be found missing and later reappearing in an unexpected place or even the original spot. These incidents are often described as baffling because the person is certain of where the object was last seen. Scientifically, this is usually attributed to inattentional blindness, where the brain fails to register an object's actual location because attention is focused elsewhere. Memory for object placement is surprisingly unreliable, especially when under stress, fatigued, or distracted. Another contributing factor is retrieval blocking, in which temporary mental interference prevents the brain from accessing the stored memory of the object's location. Once attention relaxes, the memory resurfaces, making the return feel sudden and mysterious. Environmental factors such as similar-looking surroundings or other items partially obscuring the object can further contribute to the illusion. Paranormal explanations often frame these events as poltergeist activity or manipulations by unseen forces, but in controlled studies, these occurrences are consistently linked to normal human perceptual and memory errors. The certainty people feel, however, makes the experience particularly convincing and unsettling. Audio anomalies. are experiences where a person hears distinct sounds, such as voices, music, footsteps, or knocks, without any identifiable source. These occurrences can happen in both quiet and noisy environments, often catching the listener off guard because the sounds seem intentional or meaningful. Scientifically, one of the most common explanations is auditory pareidolia, where the brain interprets random or ambiguous sounds as familiar patterns, such as speech or melody. Environmental factors like building acoustics, echoes, electrical interference, or low-frequency vibrations can also create sounds that appear to come from nowhere. In some cases, these perceptions are linked to temporary auditory hallucinations, which may occur due to fatigue, stress, migraines, hearing loss, or the side effects of certain medications. Neurological conditions can also play a role, particularly when they affect how the brain processes sensory input. Paranormal interpretations often describe these anomalies as spirit communication or evidence of otherworldly activity. While science generally attributes them to natural and cognitive causes, their suddenness and clarity can make them feel extraordinary, especially when the sounds seem contextually relevant or occur in otherwise silent spaces. Bizarre animal behavior refers to instances where animals act in ways that seem abnormal, unusually synchronized, or out of their natural context. Examples include flocks of birds moving in perfect unison without an obvious predator nearby, pets suddenly becoming distressed while staring at empty space, or wild animals appearing in human-populated areas without clear reason. Scientifically, most of these cases can be explained by environmental factors humans might not notice, such as shifts in barometric pressure, changes in magnetic fields, distant ultrasonic sounds, or chemical signals in the air. Many animals have sensory capabilities far beyond human limits, enabling them to detect earthquakes, approaching storms, or subtle habitat disruptions long before we can. Misinterpretation happens when these natural reactions coincide with unrelated human events, giving them a mysterious or supernatural appearance. Cultural and folklore traditions often interpret unusual animal behavior as an omen or warning, linking it to spiritual or cosmic signs. While the vast majority of cases are rooted in biological and environmental triggers, the suddenness and intensity of these behaviors can make them feel like a glitch in the natural order. Sudden memory, overwrites, occur when a person wakes up with a firm, vivid recollection of an event, detail, or sequence that conflicts with what they previously remembered. This can involve changes in conversations, altered locations of objects, or even entirely different outcomes of familiar experiences. Scientifically, this is explained by the process of memory reconsolidation. Every time a memory is recalled, it is temporarily made unstable before being stored again, allowing for small modifications, intentional or accidental, to be integrated. During sleep, especially in REM stages, the brain processes and reorganizes memories, blending them with other stored information, emotions, or even dream content. External suggestions, overheard conversations, or emotional shifts can subtly influence this rewrite, replacing parts of the original memory with altered details. Over time, the new version can feel just as real, if not more vivid, than the original, creating the sensation that reality itself has shifted. While paranormal interpretations often attribute these experiences to timeline changes or parallel realities, cognitive science firmly places them in the realm of normal brain function, albeit one that reveals just how malleable and unreliable human memory can be.